The brass fixtures gleamed under the early sun, the kind of light that made the harbor look like a postcard. I stood on the deck of the Mary Ann, hands steady, heart calm, waiting. Today wasn't about sailing, it was about truth. My son-in-law, Brad, thought I was a failure who lived off scraps of my retirement. He had spent years making sure everyone else thought the same. But that morning, as he swaggered down the dock in his designer sunglasses, I knew this would be the last time he laughed at me. He waved arrogantly, one arm around my daughter Lily, his other hand clutching a bottle of champagne he hadn't paid for. "Hope the rental company gave you a discount, Ronald," he shouted. "Does it come with a fishing rod, or do you have to bring your own?" The deckhands nearby chuckled. I smiled, calm, unbothered. He had no idea that every inch of the yacht he was mocking, from the Italian teak deck to the gold-lined compass, was mine, paid in full. No mortgage, no partners, no debt. As he stepped aboard, he looked around, whistling. "Wow, this is fancy for you." He tapped the chrome railing with his ring. "You sure you didn't steal it?" Lily nudged him, embarrassed. "Brad, stop," she muttered. But she didn't really mean it. She never stopped him. Not anymore. I gestured for them to come inside. "Let's get settled. I've prepared breakfast." Inside, sunlight filtered through the panoramic windows, lighting up the polished wood and cream-colored upholstery. I'd made sure everything was perfect: croissants, fresh fruit, coffee, even the subtle scent of cedar oil in the air. "This must have cost you a fortune," Brad said, running his hand across the marble counter. "Guess the plumber business is booming, huh?" I didn't answer. Not yet. Let him think what he wanted. Let him believe the old man was still the same one who fixed his sink 5 years ago when his own company was drowning in debt. As we sat down to eat, Brad popped the champagne. "To Ronald," he said mockingly. "May his golden years be filled with rented boats and imaginary riches." He laughed, and Lily tried to smile, eyes darting between us, like she was watching two strangers. "Tell me," I asked calmly, "how's work? Still managing that little startup?" He smirked. "Still growing, unlike your business, I suppose." He didn't know I'd sold that business 3 years ago for 8 figures. He didn't know the so-called retirement fund he mocked was large enough to buy this yacht twice over. "Enjoy the view," I said softly. "You'll remember it." He frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Before I could answer, the sound of dripping water broke the silence. I turned to see Brad crouched by the kitchen sink, twisting the faucet. "You've got a leak," he said, laughing. "What kind of plumber are you, anyway?" "I'll handle it," I said. But he kept going, twisting harder. "Come on, it's just a little tap. Let me show you how a real man fixes things." Brad Lilly started, but it was too late. The handle snapped with a sharp crack, and water began to spray everywhere. Brad jumped back, cursing, his designer loafers soaked. "Guess that's one for the rental insurance, huh?" I exhaled slowly, walked over, and turned off the main valve beneath the sink. "Don't worry," I said quietly. "I'll fix it." He laughed again. "Yeah, right. You brought your wrench?" I looked at him for a long second, that smug smile, that careless tone, that arrogance that had poisoned my daughter's marriage for years, and I smiled back. Always. He didn't know that in a few hours his entire world would collapse, that the man he'd been mocking wasn't the broke father-in-law renting a boat, but the owner of the very yacht he'd just damaged. As I knelt to examine the faucet, he muttered behind me, "Looks like the old man's back to doing what he's good at, fixing leaks." And for the first time that morning, I laughed too. Not because it was funny, but because I knew something he didn't. By the end of the day, I'd be the one fixing more than a faucet. I'd be fixing the way my family saw me, the way they'd forgotten who built the life they enjoyed. When I stood up again, Brad was leaning on the bar, smirking. "Maybe next time, just hire a real plumber." I wiped my hands, looked him dead in the eye, and said quietly, "That's exactly what I did." He frowned, not understanding. I didn't explain. Not yet. Because revenge, when done right, isn't loud. It's patient, it's precise, and it's about to begin. Brad disappeared topside to get some air, which usually meant he needed an audience. Through the skylight, I could see him posing at the helm, sunglasses on, elbow cocked like he'd just closed a billion-dollar deal. Lily hovered near the stairs, torn between embarrassment and defense. "He didn't mean to break it," she said softly. "He never does," I answered, and set the new ceramic cartridge on the counter. "I keep spares. Not because I expect accidents, because I prepare for people." I shut the valve, cracked the fittings with a short-handled wrench, and slid the old cartridge free. Inside, the brass teeth were chewed plier bites. Not a slip, a choice. I felt the old calm settle in, the one that carried me through 30 years of fixing other people's emergencies. Replace, reseat, test. The faucet turned like butter, the stream cut clean. Problem solved in 9 minutes, 40 seconds. Brad had tried to create a scene. All he left me was a reminder to keep the toolbox close. "Fixed?" Lily asked, hopeful. I nodded. "Marine-grade parts, built to last." She smiled, small and tired. There was a time she'd light up the moment I solved anything, from a loose bike chain to a college tuition bill. That light had dimmed since Brad taught her that money equals worth and quiet equals weakness. "Invite your in-laws to lunch," I said, wiping the counter dry. "We'll take a short run along the breakwater. Calm seas, good photos." Lily blinked. "You sure?" "Never been surer." As she called, I walked to the nav station behind a paneled door most guests never notice. 2 touches woke the system. Sonar bloom, wind data, and 8 small tiles in the corner. Cameras. I scrolled back 10 minutes. There he was, Brad, alone, testing the tap gently, working perfectly, then glancing over his shoulder and wrenching the handle like he wanted it to scream. He even used a dish towel to wipe the metal shavings. Thorough, careless, predictable. I clipped the footage onto a drive the size of a postage stamp and slid it into my pocket. A memory rose without permission. 3 winters ago, Brad at my kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug he didn't drink. "Just a short-term loan," he'd said. "Payroll's tight, but Q2 is going to explode. I covered $60,000 so his employees could feed their kids." He paid me back with a watch I never wore, and a story he told at parties about how he rescued a family friend. I let it go. For Lily. For peace. Footfalls on teak. Brad bounded down as if nothing had happened. "Waterworks?" "Like new," I said. "Great." He grinned. "Then let's actually enjoy this rental." He lingered on that last word, savoring it. He needed me to be small. He needed this to be a costume party, where I wore a captain's hat made of paper. "Cast off in 15, I told the deckhand. "Short loop, light swell." The kid nodded, eyes bright. He didn't know the whole plan, only that I'd asked him to set the dining table like a magazine spread and polish the brass compass until it could blind a cynic. We eased from the slip, engines humming low. The harbor opened like a silk curtain, white wakes, gulls threading the air, the lighthouse winking at the horizon. Brad took selfies at the bow. Lily's smile came back, just a little. The in-laws arrived by tender grace with her seaside scarf. Harold with that firm handshake that says he still believes in straight lines and level heads. "Beautiful boat," Harold said, eyes on the joinery. "She's well kept." "Thank you," I said, and meant for more than the compliment. Brad threw an arm around Harold. "You should see the galley, Dad. Classic rental headache, already bad tap, weak parts. I told Ronald we'd call the company and—" "It's fixed," Grace said, surprised. "Already?" "Already," I said. Harold glanced at me, curious, approving. Brad chuckled, a shade too loud. "Sure. For now." We cleared the breakwater, and the sea turned glassy. Lunch was ready when we returned to Idle. Lemon chicken, charred asparagus, soft rolls warm enough to melt butter. Crystal caught the noon light. The compass threw a star onto the ceiling. I let conversation meander. Brad took the head of the table without being asked, raised a glass he hadn't poured, and tapped it with a fork. To family, he said, and to experiences money can't buy. He paused, smiling into the rim. Or in this case, money shouldn't buy. Forks paused. Grace's smile faltered. Harold's brow ticked. Lily stared at her napkin. I laid my tablet on the tablecloth, screen face down, and folded my hands. Before we eat, I said, voice even, there's one small thing to clear up. It'll take 2 minutes. Brad smirked. Oh, good. Is the rental company sending a real plumber? I turned the tablet over and tapped play. 8 tiles lit the linen-like windows. One showed a man in designer sunglasses testing a perfect tap. The next showed him bracing a foot, twisting, smiling when it broke. Audio captured the grind, the snap, the soft, satisfied breath after. No. Brad's grin froze, somewhere between disbelief and panic, his champagne glass hovering midair. The sound from the tablet filled the silence, metal grinding, water bursting, his own muttered curse. Grace's hand went to her mouth. Harold leaned closer, his jaw hardening with every second of footage. Lily's lips trembled. That's not what it looks like, Brad stammered, his laugh brittle. The faucet was already broken. I was just trying to... To what? I said softly. To prove your point? To make me look incompetent on my own yacht? He blinked fast, eyes darting between faces. Your yacht? I didn't answer. Not yet. Let him stew. Let him try to climb out of the pit he dug with his arrogance. Grace turned toward him, her voice low and controlled. Bradley, we watched you break it. He slammed his palm on the table. I told you, it was defective. Defective? Harold's voice was sharp now, the weight of a man who built ships for 40 years. Son, those gouge marks are fresh. You used a wrench on that fitting. You don't fix his stainless steel by twisting it until it snaps. Brad shot me a desperate glare, eyes wide like a trapped animal. Ronald, tell them! Come on, it's a rental, who cares? These things break all the time. I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking beneath me. You're right about one thing, Brad, I said. These things do break all the time. But what you don't seem to understand, I leaned forward, my voice calm, deliberate, is that some things can't be fixed once they're broken. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Dad, please, just let it go. I smiled at her, not the cold kind, but the kind that a father gives when he's about to teach a lesson that hurts more than it heals. You've been letting it go for years, sweetheart. Every comment, every insult, every time he disrespected me, you looked away. So now, I gestured to the tablet. We're all going to look. I hit rewind. The image repeated Brad, alone, twisting the faucet, the smirk, the towel to wipe away the evidence. Grace flinched. Harold looked disgusted. Enough, Brad barked, standing so fast his chair screeched. This is insane. It's just a stupid faucet. No, I said evenly. It's a mirror. He froze. A mirror, I continued. That shows who you are when you think no one's watching. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The deckhand appeared at the doorway, wide-eyed. Sir, the marina's office called. They said the owner of the Mary Ann hasn't confirmed the next docking schedule. Should I? Brad snorted. Owner? You mean the rental company, kid? The boy hesitated, looking from Brad to me. No, sir. The registration says it's owned by a Mr. Ronald Hayes. That's you, right? The silence that followed could have sliced through steel. Brad's mouth hung open. Grace gasped audibly. Lily whispered, Dad. I nodded once. Yes, it's mine. Brad stared, color draining from his face. Yours? You mean you bought this? 3 months ago, I said. Paid in full. He stumbled back into his chair. No, that's impossible. You're retired, you're old. I finished for him. Uneducated, blue collar. I let each word hang, heavy. You've built your entire self-worth on thinking you're above people like me, Brad. But while you've been playing entrepreneur, I've been quietly successful. Grace exhaled sharply, whispering to Harold, I told you something was off about him. Brad tried to recover. All right, look, he said quickly, forcing a laugh. Maybe I went too far. I was joking, okay? You can't take this so seriously. I held up the drive with the footage. You broke something out of spite, Brad. You mocked me for working with my hands, and you laughed while doing it. I set the drive down on the table between us. This stays with me, for the record. He stared at it, then at me. What do you want? An apology? No, I said, standing slowly. I want understanding. He frowned. Understanding? Yes. I turned toward the deck window, the ocean stretching endlessly beyond it. That the hands you mocked built everything you've ever touched in this family. Brad scoffed under his breath, but his voice cracked when he spoke again. So what now, huh? You gonna kick me off your little boat? Show everyone you're some kind of hero? No, I said quietly. You're going to show them who you really are. He blinked. What does that mean? By the end of this afternoon, I said, turning back to him, you'll do exactly what you do best, destroy something beautiful without realizing it was a gift. Lily's face went pale. Dad, what are you talking about? I looked at her with sadness, not anger. You'll see soon enough. Outside, the horizon shimmered gold, the tide shifting like the story itself, calm on the surface, but a storm brewing underneath. Brad's face tightened, the last remnants of arrogance flickering like a dying bulb. You're bluffing, he said, forcing a laugh that landed hollow. You wouldn't do anything drastic. You're too soft. That's your problem. You let people walk all over you. I studied him quietly, the way you look at a man who's already said too much. Then I smiled. You're right, Brad. I was soft. I gave you chances. I gave you my respect, my money, my daughter's trust, and in return, you gave me contempt. So now, I paused, watching him shift uncomfortably. I'm giving you consequences. He frowned, glancing at Lily. What is he talking about? Lily looked like she'd seen a ghost. Dad, please don't turn this into a spectacle. I stepped closer, setting a small black folder on the table. This is the yacht's transfer of ownership contract. Signed, dated, ready to file. It was supposed to be a surprise. A gift for you and Lily, a chance to start fresh. I planned this for months. I looked him straight in the eye. Until you broke something, not just a faucet, but something much harder to replace. The color drained from his face. You were going to give this to us? I was, I said simply, until you showed me exactly why I shouldn't. Lily's hands flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Brad leaned forward, desperate now. Wait, Ronald, I can explain. I wasn't thinking clearly. You can't just... I can, I interrupted, and I did. This yacht will never belong to you, Brad, not even a piece of it. He slammed his hand against the table. You can't do that. Grace's voice cracked like thunder. Enough! You've embarrassed yourself and your wife long enough. Brad turned to Lily, panic creeping in. Say something! Tell him we can work this out. He can't just... But Lily didn't move. She was staring at the footage still paused on the tablet the moment Brad looked at the camera, satisfied with what he'd broken. Tears streamed down her cheeks. You destroyed it, she whispered. Not the faucet. Not even the yacht. Us. Brad reached for her, but she stood abruptly, stepping away. You humiliated my father, you lied, and you mocked the man who's done more for us than anyone ever has. How could you? His voice cracked. Lily, She shook her head. No, don't. I don't even recognize you. Silence swallowed the room. Outside, the sound of the harbor returned, gentle waves slapping against the hull, distant laughter from other boats, families enjoying what we'd just lost. Harold stood, clearing his throat. Ronald, I've spent 40 years building ships, but I've never seen craftsmanship this fine, or a man handle betrayal with this much grace. My respect. He extended his hand, firm, steady. I took it. Brad turned toward the door, muttering curses under his breath. He looked smaller somehow, like the ocean had stolen his height, his pride, his mask. You'll regret this, he spat. I almost laughed. Brad, I said softly, the only regret I have is that I let you on my boat. He froze for a second, then stormed up the stairs. We heard the slam of the deck hatch, followed by the shuffle of footsteps fading down the dock. Lily stood in the silence that followed, trembling. Dad, I'm sorry. I should have seen it sooner. I exhaled slowly, the anger draining away, leaving only sadness and peace. You saw what you needed to see when it mattered, I said. That's enough. She wiped her tears and whispered, Can I stay a while? Always, I said, pulling her close. There's room here for anyone who knows what respect means. Outside, the sunlight shifted, gilding the harbor in gold. Grace and Harold joined us at the window as Brad's figure disappeared down the dock, shoulders slumped, phone pressed to his ear, probably already inventing his version of the story. Grace sighed. Do you think he'll change? I watched him reach the end of the pier, a small silhouette against the horizon. Men like him don't change, I said. They just run out of people willing to forgive them. I poured 3 glasses of wine from the bottle Brad had opened but never touched. The cork had rolled to the corner of the table, a small, silent casualty of arrogance. I raised my glass toward the setting Sunday. To clarity, I said. To character, Harold added. To peace, Grace whispered. And for the first time in years, I meant it. As the yacht swayed gently beneath us, I looked down at my rough, calloused hands, the same ones Brad had mocked, the same ones that built everything he thought he was entitled to, and I smiled. Because the truth was simple. You can polish brass, you can shine chrome, you can even fake class. But character? Character always shows when no one's watching. And today, everyone had watched.